Good afternoon. I love how my table down there is showing up for me. Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's really wonderful to see you all here today at the Day of Philanthropy. You know, when I was growing up, we didn't use the word philanthropy in my house. But every December, the holiday cards would flow in to our home more or less at the same rate that the envelopes with the donations my mother gave to every single organization under the sun flowed out of our home. My mother was neither a philanthropist, nor did she operate from a Jewish framework. My mother wasn't even Jewish. But she understood the concept of tzedakah better than many Jews I know. She gave because it was just. Tzedek, the root word of tzedakah. My mother's approach was to give to everything. It didn't seem like the most strategic approach, and she likely could have had a stronger impact. And that's in part why the Federation puts such a primacy on philanthropic education. It's part of why we started the Jewish Teen Foundation, which is now a national and international phenomenon, to inculcate our kids with the notion of philanthropy. And it's why we provide philanthropic guidance to our clients. So we talk a lot about the what that we do, and we do a lot of wonderful what. Like the philanthropic education I just mentioned. But really the why, to paraphrase Simon Sinek, who has the most watched TED Talk in history, is what fuels us and feeds us emotionally. Why we do what we do. Why? It's in our vision. Richard said it. It's to ensure a flourishing Jewish community that's a force for good in the world. That's a beautiful vision. So it's why we shep nachas, we delight in, our teen philanthropists, as they learn about the process and support causes, Jewish and non-Jewish, everything from services to local Holocaust survivors to drinking water wells in rural Ethiopia. Now, of course, we delight because that's the next generation and they're coming along, but really at the core we delight because they are out there as a force for good in the world. So that's why we do this work. That's why we all do this work, I think. Because we know with our Jewish wisdom and values at our back, we can leave the world a better place than we found it. So back to the what for a moment. What do we do? It's simple, really. At its core, we build community. Some people build community when they wake up in the morning, like you heard Marilyn Waldman talk about. She builds community with the first phone call she makes till the last phone call she makes. For most of us, community is a more deliberate process to build. My epiphany, some of you may have heard this story, but my epiphany about the Federation and what we do here came to me in Leningrad, where I was serving as a diplomat, and I was dealing with the Jewish community there that was highly fragmented, very inefficient, and suffered for it. And I started thinking about growing up in San Francisco. Well, why is it that everything is so seemingly organized? And why is it that we have an agency for this and a school for that? Well, it has a lot to do with the Federation and the role that it played in coordinating. And from that time, I became very committed to this idea of building community. In this community, 100 years ago, building community literally meant brick by brick. And there are people out there that I can see right now who literally have almost the brick dust still on their hands from building this community with their own hands. I know we owe a debt of gratitude to all of those people. Today, while we do continue to help younger, newer organizations build literally brick by brick, our role is different. Our role, given that we have so many wonderful, high-performing partners out there, agencies and schools and JCCs and synagogues, is to play more of a role, as I said to you last year, as leading a network community. A community that convenes, that plans, that develops leaders, and of course, provides funding and other critical support for the most strategic needs in the community. Let me just turn that into reality and give you 3 things that were accomplished last year. We launched the community portrait, which is a breakthrough community study that's going to reveal a lot about who we are and where we're going and enable us all, Federation and agency and synagogue partners, to operate on that information. We very successfully piloted a community building mission to Israel with 25 agency and synagogue leaders and 15 board members learning about building community, the process, the rigor, the importance of one-to-one relationships. And we introduced Generator with a J, one of our capacity building services to our partners who are seeking, and most of them are, to find ways to earn income as opposed to seek only donations. So to use the metaphor of Jim Collins, who likes to talk about a flywheel and built to last, we are cranking that flywheel and it's moving. We can feel it. We feel it every day, and we hope you are feeling it too. So now let me thank you again for everything that all of you do. For those of you in the room who are not already involved with us, there's a lot of ways to engage. You could consider volunteering your time, donating to the annual campaign, opening a donor-advised fund, and by the way, check out our new portal, or leaving a legacy gift through our Centennial campaign. So please don't hesitate to speak with any of us about that. Before I announce our next speaker, let me close where I started. My mother had a hard life, in part because she spent years in an orphanage. She may not have been Jewish, but she lived our master story. From the desperation of that Pennsylvania orphanage to her creation of her family in California, she moved from slavery to freedom. Me'avdut lecherut. I'm sure this is where she got her sense of social justice. She would marvel at all of you, to know that all of you, with your hands and your resources and your wisdom, are engaged in this work. She would love that. And if she knew Hebrew, she might say, Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice, you shall pursue. Thank you. So now I'd like to welcome our next honoree, who is the recipient of the Lloyd Dinkelspiel Award for Young Leadership, which is given to an outstanding young leader in our Jewish community. I wish you could have all been in the room when we convened the Dinkelspiel Award winners about 5 or 6 months ago. The spread between the first one and the last one, I think we determined was 55 years. Somebody help me out here. It's unbelievable. It's magnificent how many people are still involved with us and still find that honor important enough to come around the table. This year's recipient is Sam Goldman. So Sam obviously travels with his own posse. Well done, well done. Sam has brought his brains, his passion, and his energy to every organization he's touched, and they are many. From the environment to LGBT advocacy, now to the work of the Federation as a newly minted board member. We wish you mazal tov on this much-deserved award, and thank you for everything you've done in this community. Please step forward, Sam.
Thank you so much, Danny, and thank you to the Dinkelspiel family, those who nominated me, and for the Dinkelspiel award winners of the past that selected me for today's honor. It is fitting that we celebrate this honor right on the cusp of the holidays, and today, the first day of fall, because as Jews, we pray and celebrate these holy days together. We will soon begin the holy work of the Cheshbon HaNefesh, the accounting of the soul. But we don't do that alone. We do that in community. and we do that by lifting each other up. So to those that lifted me up, thank you. To the rabbis and the teachers, the innovators, the Jewish professionals and the philanthropists, you've made the city's Jewish community thrive. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that work. And so to my Wexner Heritage Program family, who knew that studying so much Torah together would create such strong friendships, thank you. To the LGBT Alliance of the San Francisco Jewish Federation, who each day is working to set a seat at the table for those who haven't had a seat at the table before, here at home and in Israel. For my friends and colleagues and fellow board members of Wilderness Torah, for nearly a decade, Wilderness Torah has been teaching Torah in the treetops to the children that learn better sitting under redwood than they may sitting in a classroom. And we're just getting started. And to my coworkers at the Conservation Lands Foundation, we're building leaders in rural communities and in Indian country who convinced the president to protect more land and water than any other president before him, and there is still more ink in that pen. To my friends who remind me to dance like everyone is watching and to jump in frigid cold alpine lakes, it's never a mistake. Thank you to my friends. And to my family, Danny talked about tzedek, to justice. My family has taught me justice, whether through the arts, through literacy or social work, or the fight to end police violence. And despite the gut-wrenching news that each day that we see on TV that Black lives don't matter, we know they do. And as my father has worked his whole career to ensure that there are no more bad cops left on the street, today policymakers are considering his work to form a federal database of bad cops, so we only have good cops on the beat. Thank you, Dad, and thank you for everyone who's taught me justice. Thank you all for lifting me up. I don't think our ancestors had any idea that this is what Jewishness would look like in the 21st century. But I know how proud they would be of all of you. So, with our loved ones in mind who came before us, and in memory of my grandparents, Miriam and Alfred Goldman, and Samuel and Natalie Riven, and to my cousin Brian Goldman, who would have turned 52 years old today, we take a moment to remember those in our community who have honored us with a legacy gift to the San Francisco Federation, who have left us in this past year, and we pay tribute. Hyman Agid, Elizabeth Bing, Mara Friedman, Marianne Goldman, Arnold Grossman, Mary Heller, Wilfred Kay, Albert Lever and Phyllis Levy, Fern Lowenberg, Hans Lohurst, Rose Penn, Robert Picas, Francis Pivnik, Gerald Rosenstein, Gail Schlachter, Edward Schutzman, Vivian Solomon, Paul Spitz, Gertrude Vederoff. Thank you. Thank you for this honor, and I don't know what comes next.